probably for like, if we don't find good names for the streams here, when they go to YouTube, they can get either they can just have the name and like episode, and then maybe in the description we put what the episode's about, or we can just have the title be something else. Either or, it should be sufficient.
Yeah.
But to give
It's just that honestly, I don't always know how to. I don't always know how to begin the show. Really, is what it is, and we're getting better with that. Um, I'm gonna hope here soon we have some bells and whistles, and we have an official countdown, an official lead in. But for now, it's kind of just we start the show and start talking about stuff.
yeah. But to talk a bit about what we were talking about off air, to give people, well, first of all, welcome to the Johnny and Jimmy program, everybody. A Tom Myers update. We sent him the episode we did with my buddy Richard. I think that was a pretty solid episode to send. I think that was one of the better ones. Unironically, another one I would have also sent him is the first one you and JD did. That was the one that got the most amount of views. That's a pretty
right. The only
one.
reason that I didn't send him is because for right now we still have no JD.
Of course,
I am working on getting JD in.
Of course, I'm just saying in case he asked for like another one. I think that was a pretty good episode. But yeah, Tom Myers reminds me of this man that we're going to have on, and I'm going to name drop him because I don't really give a shit. We're going to try to have this man on named Mitch Naylor, and his response sounds pretty much the same as Tom's. At least Tom came by it honestly. Mitch, on the other hand, did not come by it honestly. He made himself seem like he was too cool for the room.
Yeah, but I don't want to put the first and last name of a non-famous person out there. So I guess let's just go ahead and say MN, great state of Minnesota.
Yeah. But it was pretty much whereas Tom Myers, I sort like, at least to Tom Myers' credit, he has more and it doesn't matter if he's a famous person or not. It's like when it's like if a famous person and an unfamous person act like a douchebag on the on like an airline. Am I going to give more grief to the celebrity? No, I'm going to give equal amounts of grief. It doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or not.
Tom Myers hasn't said yes, and he hasn't said no.
No, I'm just saying
I don't want to poke the bear with Tom. Most certainly, I hope that Tom got to see the episode, and I hope that he is receptive to it, because in a way I'm a fan of Tom. Like, I feel like I really need to say that I am a fan of Tom, whatever that involves for some people. Then I guess it can be up for debate, but genuinely speaking, I don't think that Tom Myers is a bad guy.
No, and I'm saying that at least if he says no, I feel like it will be an honest reason as to why, compared to the other gentleman that we're calling MN, who could have just said, I enjoy it, it's a cool thing, but I'm just not interested. Would have been cool if he had just said that. I would have been fine with that. Instead of, and the reason why I'm saying the two are comparable is because he did the same thing to you that Tom did. He asked what the show was about. I told him what it was about. At least in Tom's case, he asked for an episode. I was going to send the other gentleman one, and he was just like, oh, no, I'm good. The things I would have talked about would have gotten... He's acting like the second he sat down in the chair, the FBI was going to be ready to burst all three of our addresses. It's just like, shut up, man. Stop.
But in the case of before we officially get into today, yes. I do think that if Tom comes on, I think he will be receptive. I don't necessarily think that I don't really think that Tom would be you know, an unfriendly addition to the show by any means. He would certainly enhance it, and I think he will. I just think he wanted to have a little bit of background of what our show was about and what
Yeah,
we did, just because he wanted to be prepared for what he was coming on to.
yeah, and
If we were on here and we had a whole show about how much we liked, floristry. Well, I don't know if you're going to go into a show with two florists talking about, flowers and shit for an hour.
all I'm saying is that if Tom says no, I can imagine it'll be for. He seems like an honest guy, even if
Yeah.
I don't like. I don't hate the guy. I don't find him the most unfunny. I mean, there are lower bars in comedy. I could sit through 3 hours of Tom Myers rather than sitting through like 3 hours of Brendan Schaub. And Brendan Schaub, before you threaten to take down another channel, fuck you, dude. Jesus.
Oh, no, Brendan Schaub isn't gonna. I don't believe.
No. He actually was going after people for a while who said his comedy was shit.
I know.
That was a legit
believe
thing.
that we are exactly on the Brendan Schaub radar.
I'm just saying, you never know.
But Tom has material. Brendan Schaub just
had Gringo Poppy, and that was absolute.
Right, yes. And
my
as
point
far
is,
as I am concerned, before we officially move on from this, if we had to watch or listen to one special, if we had to choose between Make America Great Again, or I'm sorry, Make America Innate Again, or Gringo Poppy, I'm choosing Tom Myers.
Yeah,
every time.
I feel like the worst of Tom Myers is better than the best of Brendan Schaub. The only time Brendan Schaub is really funny is on Joe Rogan. On the random occasion he says something funny. It's just on, and which is fine. Not every comedian needs to be
because
performative.
That's the problem, is that Schaub really isn't a comedian.
No,
Schaub was a guy who he's friends with Joe Rogan. So therefore, he got on stage and tried to profit off of the fact that he is buddies with Joe Rogan.
Well, that my understanding is that Joe and Brian were trying to get Brendan out of fighting because he was getting really messed up in his fights, and he felt that comedy was like the next avenue. I understand he was relying on Joe Rogan's namesake and stuff like that, but that was my understanding.
Yeah, and and Schaub, he plugs a million things. He's got all these weird sponsors, and he does all these weird events, and it's always like these merch drops for companies you've never heard of. He has a lot of side hustles going on, and it's mainly because he's not exactly getting booked anywhere, certainly not at the mothership.
I guess to wrap up, at least I'm going to close with this, and if you have anything else to say on the subject, all I'm going to say is that if you don't want to come on a show or do something like that, just say you're not interested. You can be honest about it. But when you make yourself seem like, and this is the individual's exact words, we would get shut down, we'd get flagged. It's ridiculous. Just say, I appreciate what you're doing, but I don't think it's for me. Instead of making it seem like you're this bastion of like conspiratorial information. And like I said, the second you sit down in the chair, the FBI is waiting for the right moment to raid people. It's like, stop. You're not as important as you're trying to make yourself seem. That's like if Dave Chappelle wanted to do stand up with me, and it's just like, I could, but you're not as funny as you were 10 years ago. I'm bigger and better than that. It's just like, stop it. You're not the guy. You're not who you think you are. Stop it.
Well, that's like exactly like, I mean, yeah, but oh shit. Hold on here. So, but nevertheless, I do hope to hear back from Tom.
Me too.
And it's not who Jimi is commenting on right now is not I refrain, is not him. But anyway, we're kind of getting a little on about here, and I kind of would like to get into some things. So a couple of things that I have been thinking about,
Yes, sir.
and I don't know if this is just me kind of being in a grumpy mood or not. But I have just noticed that when you look around, you go to any store, you know, a Walmart, Target, any fast food place. It seems like it's not really the teenagers that are working anymore. Everybody is in their late 20s and early 30s, and I've just noticed that we have a lot of people, maybe who are as jaded by the world as they are, who are as angry at the people in places of privilege or what have you, and it's because our parents had careers by the time they were our age. They had money, they had homes, a lot of them. And for many of us, okay, I am very lucky in my situation and what I'm able to rent and whatnot. But I know a lot of people have roommates that are my age, even if they're married, they live with another couple or what have you. People live with their parents. Um, and I just feel like we're not seeing as many people, excelling to, any sort of real, sort of like long term balance, if you get what I mean. It doesn't really feel like we're finding a lot of careers. We're kind of just finding jobs that we are content working for as long as we can put up with it. And then the next job that may pay a dollar or so more, and there will be a lot less politics, hopefully. And if anything else, you're a fresh face, so you're not involved with the bullshit until you are, and then you just go to the next job. And it's very unhealthy, and it seems to be very routine and very normal anymore. And I do think that's why so many people are unhappy.
Yeah, and I think a part of it also it's also the environment that you grow up in, or the environment you surround yourself in. Another one is that one of the downsides to the age of information is that you're getting tons of articles. I know for a hot minute I had to like get off YouTube and Facebook because every other like third article was like World War III is imminent, or you have a bunch of environmentalists saying basically 2012 2.0. It's just there's a lot of negative stuff that surrounds you. Like you got a bunch of people either saying the world's going to end this way, the world's going to end this way, or if a certain individual gets into office, the hunt is going to begin, and if you're not X individual, it's just um no point. And that's another reason why and I'll even just say misinformation. It's just like something that's factual, but it's presented in a way that's like that's monstrous or like destructive. It's like you're told that if you're not, it's like you said earlier, if you're not born into a standard of privilege, like you'll never make it or anything like that. And it's this attitude that I see a lot of people have. Not everyone I know has it, but for example, I grew up in a pretty shitty circumstance. Like my mom, it took my mom until like she was like 45 to own a house. Like it took her pretty much all of her life to own property, and I've been fortunate enough to have the ins and the outs to own one rough short of 29, but
Right.
it's just
But I also think um, that perhaps a lot of people don't have the trajectory that you do, where you grew up in New York City and now you live in an unspecified
well,
sector of
I
Nebraska.
don't even think it's entirely that. I think it's just you have people that tell you that and people think the statement hard work truly pays off is cringe. It's like it's not. I didn't get to where I am now through a privileged position or anything like that. You truly have to bust your ass. But if you have the it's like this, and I know some people are going to get annoyed that I say it, but it is hugely in part true. If your mentality is that I wasn't born X way and I'm never going to make it, you're never going to make it because you're telling yourself you're never going to make it. Or you have to start small. Like there are people who think that you go through basic hoops and hurdles and boom, you're a millionaire or some rich person. It's like there's a lot of work that's involved with that. For example, I'm trying to make a lot of projects and avenues work, whether they make a whole lot of money or not. I don't know if I'll make it in some of the fields that I do, but the harder I work at it, the better it gets. Mentality is a part of it. And I understand for certain barriers and aspects or fields, there are barriers or things that put in place that will make it difficult to make it. But I also understand, for example, the wildfires, the government threw people $770 and a bunch of people, like, I hate to say this. Yeah, it's fucked up. The government, did that to people. And it's sad to say, you lost everything. And I hate to say, be lucky the government gave you anything. And that's another reason why people are probably just so like disjointed, is that this is like, as a nation, we're putting other countries first. And the reason why I'm not surprised the government threw $770 to wildfire victims is that while the Ukraine was getting billions of dollars during the pandemic, all we got was like 600. And we were told you can't work for X amount of time. That's why I'm glad I lived where I did. And and
you kept working. You weren't really shut down all that long.
No. And I also, unironically, I didn't get COVID once. Not once did I get COVID. And
you were very isolated and you were very lucky. But I think that you make a good point, in the sense that we see as a country, if you think about, I would say, not very long ago, okay, you can even look at smaller markets and more, stable economies like these small towns. Well, when I lived there, I believe the rent was like $550 a month for a house. Okay. Maybe 600 for a house.
Yes.
I've checked very recently, and it's creeped up to about 1,000. Okay. So if you think about larger metropolitans, okay, well, we're not even going to talk a major city. I'll just say in this area of Maryland that I live in, housing prices, or I should say, rental prices, have gotten up to 14, 15, 1,600 for a 1-bedroom apartment that used to be maybe 1,000. I couldn't even imagine what the cost is to rent a house. I mean, that's probably about $2,000 in some cases.
Yeah. And also,
on top of everybody, as I was saying earlier, not really finding a way into a career, kind of working meaningless jobs until you can get a slightly better paying meaningless job, and dealing with the fact that we have never seen rental prices and prices of everything being this bad, at least not in our lives. It's challenging, and it definitely can kind of create this pessimistic haze amongst people.
Of course. And there's like 3 other factors I think that tie into it. First of all, the economy. I think once Trump gets into office, I think once the economy gets better, people will be a lot less stressed out and depressed, that they'll actually be able to afford groceries and all that shit a lot easier. And once the cost of essentials go down significantly, like I think it will, or it should, that will lighten people's mood.
And Trump has already said, it's not going to be instantaneous, and
Of
and
course.
there and that's why there is the amount of skepticism that there is towards the entire plan. But I would say that if we're going to, not to get political, but I would say if we are going to see anything, we would probably begin seeing it around, probably like maybe 26 at the earliest,
Yeah,
and and
that's pretty realistic.
and hopefully by then, we'll try to get the conversation going of, of what's the next, I guess you could say at that point, maybe 3 years is going to look like, at least. And I'm not even talking politically, I'm not even getting into that. I'm just saying, we'll
Yeah,
see like where the
no,
housing market goes, and
and
etc.
And just to clarify, I was only talking about it from an economic standpoint. I only had to bring up the political figure. And yeah, I believe early 2026 sounds like a realistic margin. 4 years of economic ruin is not easy to fix within a few days. I don't envy anyone who has to go in there and fix that. The other thing that the next factor I'd like to talk about is the other thing with success is that people are told the only way you'll make it is if you go to college, and it depends on what field you go into. But I'm going to be honest, I don't have an issue with social workers, for example. I know a lot of social workers, and I do understand there is there is a necessity to that. But don't be surprised when you're making far less compared to like an electrician, or some field like that. And you might have to have a proper source of backup income, or you rely on your significant other's income, and I know people are also going to get mad that I say this. Sometimes you do have to live within your means until you get to a point to where you can live a little more freely. Things are going to be rough for a bit, and I know people cringe when they hear just because you went through the struggle doesn't mean that other people should. Everyone's going to go through the struggle. It's going to look different for other people. There are people who are probably going to struggle harder than me, and there are people who struggled a lot less than I did. I'm not mad about it. It's just how
Right.
life is.
But I do think, I do think that, and to kind of drift off of this topic, but what people tend to be disgruntled about is that, and I guess the whole eat the rich situation comes from when you see that Jeff Bezos has a racetrack on his property where he can race like box cars and that kind of thing. And then you come home to your rickety apartment that you can barely afford. And, you're hoping that you'll have enough food in the fridge to make it to the end of the week and whatever. In no way is that Jeff Bezos' fault.
Well,
Um,
well,
but I really do believe that that's where all the energy is coming from. It's the vibe of it's not going to get any better. So the people that have it really good will always have it good, and we will never have a sliver more.
yeah. I
You
have to add,
know, I
I
yeah.
have to add two more things. For the other factor, I wasn't even leaning into the whole Jeff Bezos owning a racetrack thing. It's you're telling people they have to go to college and they have to get into tremendous debt for a degree, depending on what degree they get, that they probably won't be able to use or isn't going to pay off the degree that they got. Now, I understand you do accept terms and conditions for a loan and whatnot, but it's pretty predatory to go up to an 18-year-old kid who has this sense of independence. They're free from their parents and everything. And, basically say, let's put you about 40,000 into debt for this degree that you're probably not going to use
Well,
when
see
there's
the $40,000 is not really bad. I about will
that.
have that when I
Well,
graduate. I
well, when
think
I'm
the
what I'm
biggest
saying
problem,
is go ahead.
I was saying the biggest problem is the Sally Mae loans and these predatory style loans that more or less triple down the amount of money that you're going to have to pay back to the point where you pay off your entire loan and you still have like 20,000 in interest waiting for you on the other side. Those need to come to an end.
Yeah.
But as far as a basic degree, okay, getting a basic degree, a degree in business, maybe a degree,
I meant like
interdisciplinary
I was
degree.
just gonna say there's stuff like trade schools. You can get into the STEM field. I'm saying that there are other avenues and like trade schools, especially because they cost if you have to take out a loan, they cost practically nothing. And the professions you get into truly scale as you go. I know people who went into the STEM fields and like the trade schools for their degrees, and they paid off what they owned in about 10 years, if that. So you have
Right.
people by like 30. That's what I'm talking about. You have people
But what I mean is that you can go to a 4-year college and get a degree and be successful. But what we're seeing a lot of now, and I'm not even picking at the gender studies degrees because that's
neither
low
am I.
hanging fruit. Okay, I'm talking about people that go and they get math degrees
Or
and they get
journalism degrees.
English degrees and things like this that seem like they would be um, they really seem like I lost the word, but they would kind of have like some fluidity to them in academic circles, so that they could go be a teacher, they could go work, in a corporate setting. There's a lot of different facets that they could make their money in, and perhaps they do. But unfortunately, a lot of people who have degrees are amongst these same people that are working at Panera Bread and Taco Bell and fucking places like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the final thing I was going to add, you sent this earlier to me as a joke, but it does kind of tie into the subject, the whole like robotic girlfriend thing. It was sent as a joke, but given the subject matter we're talking about, it actually kind of fits because there are people out there who feel they feel like they can't get into a relationship or anything like that, and they feel isolated and alone. The reason why I said to you I've seen stuff like Blade Runner, I'm good, is because I know the dangers of having like a robotic girlfriend that just fulfills all, like they just fulfill your desires. It's not real, and that's it's basically like pornography in robotic form in a sense. You get the you getting all your desires and your wants, but you're not getting what you really need. It's that case of no matter like like it's your hole is a bottomless pit, and no matter how much you fill it, the hole is still empty.
Right. And that's the crazy part too, is that again, no career, no substance, no future. I don't personally know anyone who owns one of these sex dolls, or at least, aren't going to admit to it. But I don't really know the dynamics there of having this partner who is not a living, breathing person, is just this animatronic that can be turned on and off, that is very lifelike, but in absolutely no way
It
is.
it's lifelike, but it's lifeless at the same exact time because that's not how those kinds of relationships, even in the most basic fuck buddy relationships I have, it was never that shallow. Like that's
Right.
it's just that like yet again, I'm glad you sent that. I know you sent it as a joke, but given what we're talking about, it's like, you know what, that actually fits. It feels relevant. There are people who are already frustrated at, like I said, they're being fed all of this negative information, this destructive information that the world that they know could just be destroyed at any given moment, or their lives could rupture for the worst. And then you have the economic struggles and everything and all the bullshit there. And then you have stuff like this, the whole there are some people who are probably never going to leave home if they have a doll like that. If that's all they care about, and that's like, and I don't like to be the conspiracy theorist type, but I feel like it's like an anti-human thing too,
Well,
because
to be honest with you, Jim, without saying anything, you and I have ran into plenty of potential candidates that could be owners of these dolls. And
yes.
I must say, okay, I think them not leaving their homes is probably for the better.
No, no, but you see, society doesn't get better when we just tell people, unironically, stay in your parents' basement or stay in your cave and stuff like that. Humans are social creatures. In order for people like that to become better people, they need to leave the places that they dwell. Like, you don't become a better person unless you get out there and socialize, and this is going to have the opposite effect. That's one of the reasons why the lockdowns were absolute cocksuckery bullshit. Suicide rates are going up. You have children who are having speech issues and stuff like that. It's just the whole look. The way to solve the whole isolationist thing or the feel sorry and depressive thing isn't to lock yourself up in a hole and customize your doll to your liking and then fuck it until it's no different than fucking a dead body, man. It's fucked.
And I don't even know if it responds. Like, that's the craziest thing, is that if you really do begin to isolate yourself, these sorts of things feel palatable. It's crazy. Well, anyway, I wanted to move on here.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know if you caught wind of this, not Jimmy, but hold on. This Maisie Haruko. Hold on. Sorry, Maisie Hirano. She is now the senator for Hawaii. The hearings today have began for several of Trump's candidates.
Yes.
For several of Trump's candidates for his committee.
Cabinet.
Yes. And the former governor of North Dakota, Doug Burgum, is said to be the Interior Secretary nominee. And he was asked point blank, has he ever asked a female colleague to perform a sexual favor? They are asking all of the Trump nominees this baseline question. And then this happens. And I want to take a look at this.
The Interior. It is your duty to see that the department carries out its mission to protect and manage our nation's natural resources and cultural heritage. If you are ordered by the president to act in a manner that is counter to the department's mission or to the Constitution, such as drilling in Bear Ears National Monument, will you do as the president asks? Because he wants to drill in that monument.
Well, Senator, of course, as part of my sworn duty, I'll follow the law and follow the Constitution. And so you can count on that. And I have not heard of anything about President Trump wanting to do anything other than advancing energy production for the benefit of the American people.
We all know that the president wants to.
Oh, she's so. All these people are so smarmy.
Yeah.
And then you're.
Hold on. I also have to add this. She says it like it. She says, "We all know." You say it like it's commonplace, lady. This is the first I'm hearing of this too. So it's not as commonplace knowledge as you're trying to make it seem. That's why I hate
your testimony.
That's why I hate fucking committee meetings. Unless it's like stuff that, unironically, I enjoy stuff within Canadian like Parliament. That stuff's actually really entertaining to watch.
Oh yeah, because you get to see like elected officials scream at each other.
But no, here it's the exact opposite. It's it's like going over to your grandparents' place, and it's what antiques did Shirley buy today, and you're just like, oh, shoot me now.
You say that he has a energy dominance vision. So I would ask you that should you be confirmed that you will have these kinds of matters that you'll have to decide, are you going to drill in a monument? Are you going to protect our natural resources? Or are you going to drill, baby, drill? So I raise that as a concern with you going forward. Compacts of free association. Last year, Congress renewed our compacts of free association, and that comes within the purview of Interior. It involves Palau, Micronesia, and the Marshall.
So, okay. So she's concerned that he is going to drill. I do agree that monuments should not be, monuments shouldn't be tarnished. We don't want to go and start damaging landmarks for the sake of drilling. But at the same time, will we be drilling? I mean, of course we will be. There's no real reason that we needed to stop to begin with. And I most certainly do see us taking a more, or perhaps this is me being optimistic, but maybe a more ecological approach to how we are drilling, where we are drilling, and, quite frankly, how much energy is being used in the process.
I agree, but my thing is that, and this kind of ties into the earlier subject. I won't ramble on about it too much, but this is what I'm talking about with like the information stuff. This lady, without providing any proof, context, or nothing, no proof, is saying that now he's going to drill into these monuments, be damned. And I understand you want to make sure this guy is not just going to be a good soldier, follows orders and follow in line, but if in that case, I'd be like, do you have any proof that he said this, rather than snarkily and banally just saying that it's commonplace knowledge? If it's commonplace knowledge, you should be able to provide me some context that shows that he actually said it. Otherwise, you're just inflaming things. And this is why I think part of the reason why people are so burnt out, depressed, frustrated, is because you have individuals like this saying bullshit without providing. If I'm going to say something damning about the soon-to-be president, you would expect me to have 3 to 4 articles, or in the very least, full clip, appropriate context, nothing edited out. This is what he said. Let's go from there. But instead, it's just stated like it's commonplace. It's like,
yeah, it's it's very it's very jarring. But we're going to keep watching this.
I would like to get your commitment to implement the new compacts of free association in accordance with the bipartisan law that was enacted last year.
Well, Senator, these Pacific Islands, in addition to the 3 that you mentioned that are part of the compact, but also the others that are under the insular areas of Interior, are all critically important to national security for the United States of America. All of them have important military implications. All of these are places where U.S. sailors fought and died during World War II. And with the aggression that China is showing in the Pacific, it's more important that we support them more than ever. I know that Hawaii plays an important role, including in things like with medical care for those residents of those islands. And I think it's important that the federal government does its share as opposed to putting the load on the state.
Thank you. It sounds as though you have familiarity with the compacts, for which I am gratified. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, it seemed like it went rather smoothly.
She's speaking like she's speaking like she had 45 minutes to speak. It's just like, hurry up, lady. You've only got like about 5 minutes to speak, but yet you're going like, are you aware of the compact for these monuments?
It's like, yes, I'm sure he is aware.
Yeah.
I don't foresee us, and I could be completely wrong, Okay, we could all be duped. We could all be the big dummies that we're being told that we are. And he could do all kinds of things. He could drill at fucking Mount Rushmore if he wanted to try. I don't foresee him doing it. I don't foresee Congress or whoever the ultimate decision maker in that case would be allowing for any of this to be commissioned. We are going to drill. We are going to reopen some prematurely retired oil sands. But in the process of that, and I really do think that, in the next regime, the probably a conservative prime minister, old Pierre, up in Canada, will maybe get the conversation going again about the XL pipeline. But unfortunately, I do believe that these threats of tariffs is not exactly winding their clock up very well. So there's a lot of murkiness that we're going to have to see how things go in the next couple of weeks. But I certainly don't foresee this bizarrely, a tyrannical nonsense to carry out the way that it's being touted.
And I want people to understand, I'm fine with the question. It's the way that it was phrased. I'm fine with making sure that someone's not going to blindly follow orders or just blindly be obedient. But to say it in a snarky sense, like in the way that she did, it's like, I just, like, for example, I brought it up before and I'm bringing it up again. Saying it like Trump saying that was commonplace knowledge. It's just like, well, if he didn't know it, lady, then it really isn't. I didn't know about that, so it's not really commonplace knowledge,
And there's a lot that's been going on also in the last number of days.
Of course.
Many of us have been preoccupied with the news of the California fires. Other people have just been getting through the work week, because it is a Thursday. So if President Trump has been pontificating about various issues, not every single thing can be stayed on top of. But personally, and I will say this only to touch on Trump a very tiny bit. If anything is to come of this situation with Denmark, I really don't like the idea of us invading, just even entertaining the threat of a potential invasion in Denmark to overtake Greenland. Okay, if those conversations actually start happening once Trump is president, I'll begin to shimmer a bit.
Yeah.
But I really don't believe that anything under this administration would be attempted to be overtaken by warfare. I just don't.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, yet again, to tie into like the subject from earlier. It's also I really detest fear mongering, man. I really do. It's such a scummy and a cowardly tactic. It's just come out and say what you mean. Don't languish in vagueness or anonymity. Just say what you mean instead of this whole thing of just, well, he said this, therefore. It's just like, stop it, man. It's just like, I know
that we know, okay, Trump didn't actually say that he was going to put a firing squad on Liz Cheney. No. That's complete nonsense.
No, and and this happened a million years ago. I remember when the Trayvon Martin George Zimmerman stuff was going on. I remember CNN made a clip and they edited certain things out of context to make it seem like George Zimmerman was a full-on racist, and there are people going like, well, he is. And it's just like, okay, if he is a full-on racist like you're telling me, why would you edit a clip in a way that makes it seem that way? If I'm like, if I see this individual going to trial and I see that there's clips of them, I'm going to edit out maybe unnecessary background noise or whatever it is, edit out what's pertinent and leave the rest in. You leave in what's pertinent. And for this individual, there's a good chance they heard Trump say one thing and they've just interpreted it as this thing because in their mind, he's this evil dictator, Nazi fascist that's going to do all these horrible things. And it's just, it's just like, be honest. If you don't agree with what he's doing, just present it honestly and stop with the whole, like, I'm higher and mightier than you. You're speaking at a pace slower than my lazy eye. Stop it. Just stop.
Oh man. So on to so there is a Republican governor, and I'm not blaming Republican or Democratic governorship for not advancing on cannabis laws. We see around the country there is feelings that could go either way. However, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, marijuana has been legal now in Virginia, medically and recreationally since like 2022. Yep. But the governor doesn't want any recreational stores open because he believes that it would increase crime and it would spread the availability to children. I'm not exactly sure what crime it would increase. There has never been any linkage towards a cannabis store being open or cannabis being legally available, and suddenly this giant spike in crime. And also what we're seeing, at least in Maryland and in some neighboring states, even in Colorado, one of the oldest recreational states in the country, that kids really aren't touching the stuff. That the exposure is becoming less and less, and the normalization is about on the same level as alcohol. Where, yes, there are parents that will buy alcohol for their kids. They will buy weed for their kids. But the street market is not as popular. It's not as rampant, and it's a part of the education in a lot of these states now because it is legal.
Yeah.
So that's really how I kind of look at it, is all of these governors, like Kristi Noem, completely strong arming cannabis laws. The people voted for this, and it doesn't really matter if it doesn't exactly wind your fucking window shade up very far. The people who voted you in to govern them have unanimously told you through a vote that this is what they want to see in their state. And all of these straw man arguments and all of the purposeful avoidance of facts and statistics of neighboring states, it just annoys me because, they would rather keep the judicial system pumping through these nonsensical fucking cases than just facing the facts on this.
I have a few theories, and I have to say that this is all speculation and just it's all alleged. Nothing is factual, but I feel like either A, some of these governors are in big pharma's pocket. Why else would you not want marijuana of any caliber across the states? Number two, the whole we've talked about it before. Stuff like the DARE program, making it seem like you're going to get like a full bag of weed. And the second you do the weed, you're going to want to do the cocaine, the meth, and all this.
Well, that's why DARE has removed cannabis from its, from all of its programs.
That the program is a farce. I'm not saying that there aren't like horrible drugs out there. I'm not saying to 13-year-old Billy, here, take a hit off of this crack pipe. I'm not, I understand certain drugs.
And I'm also not offering a joint to 13-year-old Billy either. I'll make that very clear.
and this, it's kind of like the whole video games are co-linked to violence. It's like it's like some of these individuals think that the only people who do weed outside of hipsters are like gangsters and shit like that. It's just like, if you smoke the weed, you're gonna want to put on some garment over your face and get your Uzi and go light up a neighborhood. It's just like,
I can tell you, working in cannabis, I've learned a lot, some things the hard way, but one thing that really opened my mind was seeing just how many older folks were purchasing and using cannabis, whether they had became turned on to it when the product became medical, whether they had been, they were old heads and they had been smoking their entire lives, and whatever the case may have been. A lot of people have came to discover that cannabis works. They do it in secrecy. Not everybody is open, about it, or as social about it as the next person might be. But it's certainly, now, yes, I can't say that it doesn't necessarily attract some characters that go bump in the night, but I'm also not going to say that it doesn't. We don't see grandmothers on a daily basis. We don't see men that come in business suits. We see nurses. We see construction workers, we see plumbers, we see all walks of life who are either using cannabis for a medical or recreational purpose. And they're not out here, running up the crimes. They're going home to their house and they are enjoying a joint or what have you, much to the same fashion that, you'd crack open a beer, perhaps.
and
So I really don't like that we are still pigeonholing all of these stereotypes onto folks that these governors have never actually spoken to. They're not out speaking to their people.
yeah, and I also have to point out to people about on it was like, I think it was the 3rd of November. It was the day that I was leaving Denver from that symphony I went to. I went into my first dispensary for the first time ever. They treat that process seriously. It's no different than going into like a liquor store. If you don't have a valid ID or anything like that, they're not going to let you in. And the guy behind the counter took that. They look like, these are people who run businesses and they understand the law. They take it seriously. They're not letting, for example, earlier, they're not letting 13-year-old Timmy run in there and just letting him run up the thing. If you can't get in, or if you don't have an ID or anything like that, they're not just letting you walk in.
No.
And it's just, and yet again, it's no different than alcohol. If I go in with a shoddy ID or something like that, or I'm some 16-year-old kid trying to riz my way some alcohol, it's not going to work.
My experiences in the Midwest with dispensaries, and also what I have been told by patients and by vendors, the Midwest is a lot more lax in its regulations. Now in Maryland, okay, if you're a medical patient, you can bring your child in under the age of 8 onto the sales floor.
Yeah.
Any older than 8, well, they can't sit outside by themselves. Okay, unless if you're 16, you can sit outside, but you cannot. Kids cannot be unaccompanied in the lobby.
And
so it's not like you're dropping your kids off and going inside. And rec patients can't even come in with babies in their arms. There are no minors that can be brought in any context with a rec patient.
Yeah.
And caregivers have to be fully registered. Everything has to be on paper and be by the book. So you're not getting any of this, at least in theory, all of the legal measures are in place to make sure that cannabis products aren't being illicitly trafficked.
Yeah. I just had to throw that out there as a guy who works for that sort of thing. And for me, a guy who's never been to one, and this was my first time going, and I've also talked to other people who've went to them. They are treated, they treat this stuff very seriously. They don't muck around. Like, you don't joke around about the stuff. It's like, It's like firearm sales to like an independent sale. If you make a certain joke, they won't sell to you. Or if it's a vendor or whatever, you make a certain joke or remark or a statement, it won't be sold to you. There are some caveats, or I can imagine there are some bad eggs, but that's just the case for all businesses and walks of life. And I agree with you. These governors, these senators, and all these other crazy people are just out of touch.
Well, I'll tell you this, Jimmy. So the store that I work in, it's much more lax. Okay.
Of course.
I know if we want to name like some big brands, okay, like in Denver, there's that string called the Green Solution.
Yes.
And you walk in there and they look like stewardesses on a fucking Delta flight, Yeah. They're all done up. They got the suits and ties and things are very nice. Yeah. We have hoodies, we wear jeans. It's a much more lax environment. But you cannot tell the bud tender that you are purchasing for someone else.
Yeah.
You can't say anything about, my brother's in town and I'm doing this and that, because we don't know, especially if you come in there and, you're, 20 something, we don't know who that brother is, how old that individual is. And that information is enough for you to not be served. If you are under the influence of anything, if you reek of alcohol, if it's clear that you are, having some sort of trip on an illegal drug or a prescription drug, if you just come in and you are tweaked in one way or another, service could be denied for you. Yeah. There's a lot of rules. As a matter of fact, also in Maryland, and again, this doesn't speak for every single state. Okay, we have about 35 or 37 states now that have some form of medical or recreational program going on. But let's say if you and I owned a dispensary, yes. Okay, let's say we had we had one at the edge of town. All right, yes. Everything that is done, I don't know how Nebraska is going to handle things, but in Maryland, everything that's done, every facet of the business has to be someone who is 21 and older. And what I mean by that is, let's say if you have a lawn on your property, you have a little lawn leading up to your front of your business.
Yeah.
A teenager cannot mow your grass. You have to have an adult do that. If you have a plumbing issue or an HVAC issue, you can't have an apprentice come in and work on it. It has to be an adult. So the reason I bring this up, in any scenario in which a minor could be in the building near cannabis, has been completely etched out. There is no legal possibility of this. And I do believe that if these governors, okay, much like Glenn Youngkin, much like whatever quack is running Iowa, if they would just learn to understand that the times are changing and we know so much about cannabis now, okay, you have an entire library of states and companies and research groups and grow teams that you could cite and mill through and decide how you want your program to go. But by simply boycotting the whole thing because you have some sort of a boogeyman ideation, it's lazy governing.
The other theory that I have, and the other theory that I have, and this one is less likely to be true, but I think there might be some plausibility. I think some of these individuals behind closed doors are smoking weed, but since they've been anti-weed, it's like anti-gay senators. There have been some anti-gay senators that were busted fucking dudes or getting their face fucked by some cock. Right. I can imagine there are some individuals who probably smoke weed. Turned out that what they thought to be real wasn't true, but rather than just saying that I've turned a new leaf, pun completely intended, they still have to feel like they have to be anti whatever. Now that one is less likely when it comes to weed, but I believe that could be a possibility too, because it always finds out there are people out there who are genuine staunch advocates against X thing. Like I'm an advocate against pedophilia, but I'm not a pedophile, for example. There are, but I could imagine for some of these people, they probably smoke weed. They probably saw some statistics that were very well vetted and went against their position completely. But rather than, having this revelation, they're like, no, I have to be this way and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you've had that belief for like 30 plus years, yeah, for as much as I don't like the quacks and the kooks, I get it. It's hard to think this reality that you were taught to be true isn't real, because you question that.
I'll
start
put
to
this up
question
there.
everything.
And I know this is going to be a bit of an egregious example for some people, but I can almost put the example of like gay marriage. Okay. Yes. There were a lot of people, at one point in time who thought that, we would never experience, it just wasn't something that, was spoken about. It was kind of seen as a punchline. It was seen as taboo. And there were a lot of states that would not budge. And then, the federal government came along and forced their hand. And now it's very commonplace and really isn't something that anybody, most people don't see as controversial or have any real fucking problem with. And I get that cannabis is very different because it's not inhibiting any one group from living their life.
No, but the premise is still the same,
right? But it's most certainly coming from a place that limits people, that risks putting people in jail, and even when a medical card is in possession, there are businesses that have a zero tolerance policy and will disqualify candidates that are otherwise, completely viable because of their cannabis use. Just because that is something that they still stand against.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also understand why it's not going to be a day one discussion for anybody. We have a lot more fish to fry, and the states that are looking to legalize cannabis, they're kind of doing it in the background of everything else that they have going on. So I just think it's silly. If you're going to legalize it, if you are going to put laws in place that no longer arrest people for being in possession, for consuming, potentially for growing, okay, fine, great. But you should be creating jobs. You should be creating tax revenue, and you just shouldn't be pussyfooting around. But that's just personally how I feel about it.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. But anything else from you tonight, Jim?
This Sunday is going to be a pretty good episode. We're going to have Richard back on, and we're going to all go through our favorite TCAP episodes and stuff like that. And that one's going to be a lot more goofy. We're just going to just basically sit through that. That's pretty much that's all I can think of for an announcement, unless you had anything else to add.
No, I think we're going to have a fun episode. We'll have Richard back on again. Hopefully, we will be getting some more folks on the program as time goes on. But for now, Jimmy, I think tonight was fun, and I'll see you next time.
All right.